I guess the animals are coming down out and staying in people's yards.
Oh yeah?
So they're telling everybody to keep their pets in. And
I've got a cool picture of a deer laying on the front porch of a cabin in Bryan Head last year. People ask me all the time what animals do when there's fires, and I told them they just sit on your front porch and wait for you to come back.
She said that they've told people to keep your pets inside because they're all coming down and sitting on people's lawns and sit everywhere. So,
Oh,
interesting
Dale,
way
you're
to
good.
Figured it
how
out.
many bears there.
Yeah, and I haven't had a chance to get you some more water. I'll get her done.
Yep, you go somewhere, they don't.
Now I haven't got internet.
Yeah. Collars on a
Yeah, we're
You got
rolling.
Yeah,
And,
Okay, what else haven't I put?
I'm in.
Thank you. Oh, look at you, jeez.
Back in.
That's service, man.
I've got a but you got somebody else that
Deer,
did.
actually.
I didn't see your bottle.
Ash?
I was here from last time. Thanks, Dale.
You got a drink?
Yeah, I'm good.
Drives the ticks out of their skin.
Mike will be here, so he'll
No, in the
probably
meantime.
I've seen deer as black as a computer screen.
Really?
Yeah, I've actually seen deer rolling around in ash when there's no fire burning.
Which,
I think it helps them with their parasites or something. I don't know. They like to get in that ash.
You're 9 o'clock, just your third.
so which fire's this?
Dry Canyon, Cameron Canyon.
Really?
You gotta read in the,
That did get going pretty
you
good
gotta
for a
read
bit,
in the
didn't it?
parentheses.
I was
I
out on my
learned that
tractor and I looked down here.
a long time ago, because I get lost too. I'm like, what is that?
It just barely started. I go,
I got an
I thought
email
it was
saying
dusty.
it had to be here
Oh
at
my,
night.
it was another fire.
We were like the fire triangle for a minute.
Yeah.
It was just like all this.
Yeah. And then the next day it was like do do do. Everywhere you
I have an idea of what our
everywhere you look.
conditions were like this year.
Oh, so dry.
Maybe.
It's crazy.
So
Yeah,
dry.
Yeah, I mean, we're
There's
getting
different
old.
places to go up on the mountain, and there's some the grass is like this, and there's other places there's nothing.
Yeah, I like the places where there's nothing right now.
Yeah. Much quicker, much easier.
Paul?
I just got your text just now.
Stephanie, would you like to be on the agenda?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We got you Saturday night. It's rolling whenever you're ready.
Okay. Once it doesn't look like we're fighting technical issues. Well,
Power was out.
for these other two. You might have to push your button on your computer on the box.
Well, I did. It says I'm
Are
on.
you okay?
Oh.
Are you ready?
I don't think your monitor's on
Oh, maybe that's what I got to yet.
right there.
I don't have any that were ready. I didn't. I was up.
You haven't landed long enough to.
I was working on a talk till about 1:30. Okay. We can work on that.
Well, we do have a couple bugs, but let's get started. Welcome to commission meeting this morning. Today is Monday, the 9th of May, 2018. July. I'm not even going to make excuses for myself. We're just going to roll.
Get a lot of stuff done if I got those 2 months back.
All right. We're going to start out this morning with a pledge of allegiance and a prayer. Again, we're kind of on the fly this morning. Stephanie, would you mind leading us in the pledge of allegiance? And Ryan, since you're front and center, would you lead us in prayer? Thank you.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this day. We're grateful for the opportunity to come and work as leaders of our community and our county, and Father, we ask Thee to bless those leaders with the knowledge that they need to make wise decisions. And Father, we ask a special blessing be placed upon this land for moisture, as we're in desperate need of it. We ask Thee to look over those who are serving in our police, military, and fire agencies, that they'll be looked upon, that they will be safe as they continue with their duties. And Father, we're grateful for all the things we have, and we're grateful for this beautiful land that we have to call home. And we ask Thee to continue to bless it. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you. We'll start with departmental reports. I don't see Dennis.
Nope. I don't know where Dennis is today.
Okay. Move right on to Ryan.
I think I'm still lost.
Go into the Google Chrome up there.
Okay.
That Cario Connect client right there.
So I've already done that 5 times.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I'll go ahead and get started. The first thing you'll see as you open up the packet that I just handed each one of you is a map. That map is a picture from a drone of the Bryan Head fire, and it illustrates some work that we've been doing in cooperation with private landowners and the Boy Scouts of America. You're actually looking at 3 different projects where we're removing some of that damaged timber. Unfortunately, most of that timber is going to be piled and burned. There's no market for it. It actually costs us more to try and sell it or do something with it than it would just to put it up in smoke. Nonetheless, there was a lot of questions last year about removing that material, and just an illustration of being able to get rid of that material so we don't have the standing hazard, so we don't have that continued fuel. That's an ongoing project. I'm hoping to have some sort of completion by the end of the year. So more to come on that, but it's a real visual of what it looks like up there. Just to note, we had 2 fires in that area, started from the machines that are up there working. We did finally have to put them on hoot owl, so they were only able to work during the night hours. One of those fires did burn down one of their machines, so it's dry up there. We do have a fire potential. It was concerning to us, and the contractors have been excellent to work with and mitigating those problems. So the next thing I have is just a needs list. We currently have 2 needs. The number 1 need would be a building, a place that we can store equipment. I don't have a lot of details, but I listed the Cedar City Fire Department. Their station on the north end of town doesn't meet their needs, and they're talking that it's going to cost $1.2 million to renovate that station to meet their needs, and $1.8 to build a new station. So it doesn't make sense to put a whole lot of money into a building that's not going to work for them. That may be an option for us. And then also the road department, from what I understand, is proposing some sort of a building, and I don't have a lot of details on that either, but yeah, it's a critical need for us. And then looking into the future, we have it's an ex-sheriff's office vehicle. It's an SUV, and it's got about 150,000 miles on it, starting to have some problems with it. It's still meeting our needs currently, but just in the future, it'd be good to upgrade that to something a little newer, a little more reliable. And I can answer questions on any of that as we go. The next item is our training report. I've listed all the training that we completed in the fall of 2017 and through the winter and spring up to date 2018. The majority of this training is geared towards the volunteer fire departments. We're working to get them into more advanced courses and more advanced qualifications in wildland fire operations. As you'll see, looking through those, all of those have been funded by either state funds or grants. So there's little to no out-of-pocket costs from the county. I provide a lot of that training in the wintertime, and being able to use that PC funding, the participation commitment funding, to keep my assistant working through the winter. He's also been able to help me out with finishing that up. So next is prevention education report. Again, fall 2017 through current 2018. I highlighted the biggest note, which is burning permits. I think Alma's the only commissioner, maybe Dell remembers, we passed an ordinance here in the county that requires a burn permit for all outdoor burning. That's been very successful. You can apply for those permits online through the county's website, and we continue to get information out to individuals so that they know where to go and how to get those permits. There's no cost to the permits. Last fall there was 23 issued, and that was mostly because of the conditions. We just weren't able to let people burn. We were still having wildfires well into December. But you'll notice in 2018, we've issued 257 permits from March 1st until June 1st. So it's a substantial amount of permits. It's a lot of people being able to do some burns on their private land to clean up yard debris and woody materials. A couple of other things that we've been working on with prevention education. Number one, we used some funding last year, and the next page has a couple of pictures, but we used some funding last year for the participation commitment match to purchase a printer for the county road department. That printer has been awesome. I can tell you right now, they're able to build signs, and the signs that you can see currently, it's about $20 for that sign. If I had gone to a vendor, it would have been well over $200. What's really cool is that printer's actually making the county money right now. I've shared this information with other counties and state, and the state's actually asked the county to build some of those signs, and so that's money coming back into the county to actually do that. So we got a great partnership going there, and it's a real benefit to the county. The signs look amazing. They're great quality. Continue to work on putting more signs up as time allows us to, but that's really paid for itself. Another thing that we're working on is working with the clerk's office, again utilizing some of that participation commitment funding. We're actually putting a message in the quarterly billing. So the back of those quarterly billings that the clerk's office is sending out, you'll see a prevention message, as well as on the front when we're in fire restrictions, that sort of thing, there will also be a message. So kind of reaching out to every department that I can to help them with some of their funding. Participation commitment match will go towards the mailing for one of those, which will also reduce the cost to the landfill for those mailings. So got a lot of fun things going on in prevention education. We're seeing a reduction in human-caused fires, and so we're going to continue to work hard on that prevention education aspect. Fuels report. You've got the photo in front of you from the Bryan Head fire. In addition to that, we are working with multiple communities and subdivisions throughout the county. I've been able to acquire state funding for a lot of these projects. Probably the biggest one of note is we were able to get $300,000 in state funding for the area south of Cedar City. Between Cedar City and Cedar Highlands, we'll be doing some fuels modification in that area to protect those two communities from fire moving in from the south. On average, I bring in anywhere from $50,000 to $300,000 into the county from that project, from the catastrophic wildfire program that the state has going on. It's kind of a big deal to us because our contribution match is less than what I'm bringing in for state funds. So I continue to do that to try and offset our costs wherever I can. Alma was able to attend the meeting. I've proposed $100,000 of 2018 funding from the legislature to do work in Bumblebee Ridge and Red Canyon, just south of Parowan here. And that's, again, going into that fuels mitigation. One of the biggest problems I have is I can't administer that. So we're hoping that bringing the seasonal engine captain on, or my assistant on year-round will help with some of that workload in that fuels mitigation. So we have miscellaneous funding that we've been using in Hamlin Valley, federal funding, state funding, and actually some private landowner contributions to do some work out there, continue work out there. That valley is actually looking really good. If you haven't been out there, it's worth the ride. Between the fire scars and the fuels mitigation work, the fire risk to that area is really diminished. So it's good. It looks nice. We're getting some nice grasses in there, which is good for the animals and the community itself. I attached some photos. So the very first time that I got funding from the legislature out of the catastrophic fire program, I got $150,000. That sounds like a lot of money, especially when I tell you that we only treated about 10 acres. And that was a fuel break that literally kept the Bryan Head fire out of the gut of Bryan Head. I attribute that fuel break to saving the town last year. And in the bottom right-hand corner of those 4 pictures, you can see where the red fire line impacted that fuel break. That was a project that we contracted out. Summit Mountain is who actually came in and cut that. And the next page has pictures of what it looked like. And I referenced a stump in all 3 pictures, but it has a picture on the top what it looked like before they started cutting. After they cut it, you can see the piles. And then at the bottom is actually post Bryan Head fire, what that looked like after the fire went through. And I think it's important to note that that fuel break, though fire went through it, it was a place for us to anchor in and actually start putting line in to keep that fire out of Bryan Head. And even after the fire, you can see the green grasses in there that are flourishing. So another success, and we continue to do these fuel breaks. We continue to see success in them, and I'll continue to work on them. So I think it's a good thing for not only the county but the state in a whole. The following pages are the fires since we met last year in July. I did add the Bryan Head fire in there with the total acreage, total expenditure. The far right column is the county expenditures, which you'll notice the county expenditures are 0 all the way through. We've been able to utilize the funding that the fire departments get on an annual basis to augment our suppression efforts. Of course, we're already paying for those resources, so that's no additional cost to the county other than their operating budgets. Otherwise, the fires have either been on federal land, which the federal agencies have paid for, and or state land, or our partnership between the county and the state for my position and the engine's position. So we continue to maintain those partnerships, maintain those working relationships with the fire departments and other agencies. It's a big thing for me. I'm one guy. I cover 300,000 square miles, but it makes it really easy when you have fire departments stepping up. And as you can see in the picture next to us, that was the Dry Canyon fire. That was this year, and that's Parowan City Fire Department. That's their engine right there. So got a little sporty. There was some folks kind of running for their lives for a minute, but the training we've put into those guys and the funding we've put into those guys and gals that volunteer in our fire departments is paying off because we're catching stuff like this. That fire went to 23 acres and was primarily staffed with volunteers during the first operational period. We were able to get some federal resources and air resources in to help out with it, but good work by the volunteers. They continue to step up and do a good job for us. 2017 budget report, well within budget as I like to be. The following is the PC statement, and that's for 2017. And then after that, you'll see the 2017 participation contribution by Iron County. So we had to account for 128,000, well, round it to 129,000 for our participation commitment match. We were able to do that. One thing to note is that a lot of that was actually done in-kind services. So even though the county has to come up with the $229,000, it does not mean that we have to spend that in hard dollars. So I'm working close with the auditor's office to account for things that the county's already doing and get credit for that. So we're actually hopefully saving money there, hard dollars there. So I talked with the auditor earlier this year, and we plan to actually put an accounting code in so that we can better account for things that the weed department's doing, the road department's doing, the clerk's office is doing, the landfill's doing. So across the board, we're looking for those hours that are spent that we can count towards prevention education. And then the 2018 budget, again, well under budget at current time. I apologize for the poor handwriting on the final page, but that's our 2018 projected participation commitment match. The form itself wasn't working for me to be able to type that in, so hopefully the state will get that figured out. But again, the biggest lion's share of that participation commitment match is going to be into fuels mitigation. And I've broke those out by category, so we have 3 mitigation projects. 1 fuels treatment in Red Canyon, some in Woolsey's Ranch, some in Quichapa, and then continuing that sign program. I don't anticipate seeing that number, but I want to account for the match that those guys are putting in. And
could that be counted on your in-kind?
Yes, and I've got Wade. He's doing a great job accounting for everything they're doing. So all of this, those numbers show hard dollars, but a lot of that in the end will come back out in in-kind. So again, my anticipation is to reduce the out-of-pocket hard dollars to the county and capture what we're already doing.
Quichapa treatment, what specific area? Is that just by the housing out there west of, or where is that?
Yeah, so it's at the toe of the hill. Of course, that goes into BLM, and what we're doing is trying to create a buffer between the toe of Bumblebee Mountain and the Quichapa subdivision. And it's ongoing money. We've been working out in that area for about 10 years now, and we've got a mix of state, federal, and some local money that's going into that. And what I try and do with our PC match, with our county contribution to these, is leverage state and federal funding. So if I can tie fuel breaks together, then that's what I try and do with that funding. It kind of, lack of better terms, is a Band-Aid until we can get bigger money in place. A lot of the money goes into planning, and that's been something that we've really had a struggle with for several years, is funding the planning portion of these projects. So I'll answer any questions, comments.
Why are these trees knocked over, Brian? Are they blown over?
No, those were actually cut and tipped over on private land in an attempt to get rid of all the standing dead trees from the Brian Head fire.
Who's done all that? That's
It's a lot of trees.
a hell of a lot of chainsaw, dude.
So actually it's a machine that's doing it. We're using a Feller Buncher. You're familiar with Feller Bunchers, and there's 3 different contractors in there. And I can't remember all 3 of the contractors. But yeah, it's all been machine cut and laid down with Feller Bunchers. And unfortunately, one of those contractors sparked a small fire. He jumped off his machine to go get another machine to put the fire out, and when he got back, his Feller Buncher was on fire. That machine had 500 hours on it, and it's about a $600,000 machine. So they took a pretty hard hit. They do have insurance on it, and was able to get the machine replaced pretty expeditiously. So
there's no salvage value in that?
No salvage value in it, nope. They were hoping that maybe they could get some pallets out of it and it's going to cost more to move the material off the hill than it is to actually get reimbursement. So
those are just slash piles, like you said earlier.
yeah, yep. It's a real shame.
You can see it pretty good from the Thunder Ridge Scout Camp if you look to
Yes,
the north there. And
yes.
it's quite the.
And that was one of my big concerns, is getting scouts up there and having one of those fire weekend trees fall over and kill somebody.
Yeah.
So I was really glad when the scout camp stepped up and decided to do some work on their side of the fence. So
That is the scout camp in the upper left corner of this picture.
yep.
Yeah, that's looking the other way. Yeah.
Yep.
So from the S turn, you can look over and see a lot of.
And a lot of what you're looking at is Bryan Head Resort property, and they've contracted their own machine to come in and treat their property. So again, it's amazing to see these partnerships. It's amazing to see people showing interest in their private land and continuing to make it better. So
Yeah, that's good to see that.
Well, and I have to compliment you. Some of the conversations we had about like the billing and some of that's very cooperative and just makes good sense. I mean, very practical use of some of those dollars you've been able to acquire.
thank you. I appreciate that.
We
Yeah,
appreciate it.
that's what I'm all about, is building
Get
relationships.
on West Valley.
West Valley, the Type 2 team will transition back to a local management team on Tuesday. Last number was 46% containment. It did not impact Iron County. It's still 2 miles to the south. They've received a moisture on the fire, and yeah, lack of better terms, we could put a fork in that one. I think it's done its thing for the year. So most of the fire burned on Wilderness area, on the Pine Valley Ranger District, and did more good than bad. So
How did
it
how did that 2009 burn scar affect it?
it was holding on that old burn scar. So that's one of the successes of these fires, is we're using some of these fire scars as barriers. The fire did come down and impact a private land on the west side of the fire, which is over in Grass Valley. But that landowner had actually been working with us, with the state, and was actually in the process of building a fuel break. The machine was actually sitting there, so they continued. They went to work, and the fire came down, impacted that fuel break, and that was it. So we were able to save some structures in there, prevent that fire from burning onto private land, and just some good hard work from firefighters and quick containment on that side probably saved some structures being lost. So
Most of that get to Lee Wood in Grass Valley.
without looking at the map, I couldn't tell you for sure, but a couple of miles, I think. It was quite a ways. It came down and hit, shoot, I can't think of the name. Just the one private landowner is all that it touched. So, good work.
Publicly, I'd like to say I have the opportunity to work with you and the other fire administrators year round, and fire season is such a these fires are such a small portion of what you guys actually do. It's fun to sit in meetings in the middle of the winter when there's 3 feet of snow and 3 inches of snow and look at the planning and the forethought that goes into what's going to happen when fire season breaks out, and how prepared you really are for this. That it's not a mad dash; it's more of a science when it comes down to it. And that's really cool to watch. Being a cop, firefighters are the other guys. It's been really cool to integrate into that society a little bit and watch just how much work and effort goes into that. And you and all the other chiefs need to be complimented on that.
Thank you.
Just one other thing. So I sit on the Committee for Justice and Public Safety with the National Association of Counties. One of the initiatives that we're working on right now is kind of a blanket fire initiative. There's a lot of aspects to it, but I co-sponsor that initiative, And one of the things that we're doing is trying to bring the idea of fire mitigation and mitigation matches nationwide. I've been able to use our example of the cooperation between state and federal and local agencies as an example in that we meet the end of this week in Nashville to, and I have no doubt that that initiative will pass, and there'll be some lobbying that goes on because of that. And, Iron County's been a great example in that fight, so thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you for doing that. That's important work for us. Also, I have a meeting at the end of the month. I'm working with Senator Vickers. We're trying to look at some different options for incentivizing businesses that allow people to volunteer in public safety. Right now, there's things that can protect military. So when they're deployed, their jobs are secure. And essentially, we're looking at something similar to that. It started with a conversation between me and one of the volunteers in the West Desert. I thought it was a good idea, took it a couple of steps further. But the intent is to incentivize the businesses and the employers to promote volunteerism in public safety. As you guys are well aware, we're seeing a huge decrease in that. And I hope to keep you guys in the loop on this as it goes forward. But I'm working with the Commissioner of Public Safety, Brian Cottom, our division director, Senator Vickers, and Coy Porter from the State Fire Marshal's Office to try and get something going through legislation that'll help, again, incentivize the private landowner, the private business owner, in supporting volunteerism. So more to come with that, but I appreciate those national efforts. I like to be the spotlight. I like to be the focal point, I guess, where people can say, hey, this is working in Iron County, let's do it elsewhere. We've had a lot of successes here in Iron County. I try and keep your phones at a very minimum. I manage incidents and problems at the lowest level as I possibly can, and I'm passionate about my job. So I support you guys. I appreciate the support from you guys, and we'll continue to do good things in Iron County, both on suppression and mitigation prevention efforts. So.
And just one other quick thing on the West Valley fire. I was at the fire briefing in New Harmony the other night. And there were a lot of Iron County residents there that were really concerned about the fire coming over into our neck of the woods. And Mike Melton did a really good job as far as explaining and I think putting those fears to rest. There were a lot of people that were concerned that they didn't see a lot of firefighters. Which I thought was funny because he says, well, you might see a dozen of them running around, but there's actually 650 of them up on that hill. Not down here, it was just kind of funny. But I appreciate the communication that goes back and forth as well. I think we were able to put a lot of citizens' minds at ease that night. And it was a really good turnout. It was standing room only from inside the firehouse to out in the street almost. There was a lot of people packed in that little New Harmony firehouse. So.
That's excellent.
If you'd pass that on, thank you for the open communication, and
absolutely
that was impressive.
Absolutely, that's what it's all about, working together. So I'll pass that along. I appreciate the comments. We'll just keep doing what we do. So we got a lot of work ahead of us, and I plan on being around for a long time. So if there's ever a time when you don't feel like you're getting what you need from me, let me know. Yes, sir.
Hey, we appreciate you so much, and I'm really grateful for this little fire right up here that you got it out so quickly. Cause it's like, oh no, here we go again, after the Bryan Head fire. So, and I know the local agencies or departments jumped on that, just like they did the Bryan Head fire. If it wouldn't have been for that wind that one day.
Yep.
But it was amazing how when that started to go south, with the prevailing wind usually being the other direction, and how the local department saved Bryan Head along with the treatments that were already done. So, but anyway, the one question I have is on this treatment here on the picture. Was that already seeded, or are they going to seed it now after they've taken the timber off? Or?
So yes, we did fly seed onto that project prior to the fuels work itself. We like to put the seed down and then we'll let the machines work it into the ground and that sort of thing, versus we've had more success that way than putting it on later. So we're very concerned with that disturbance because that introduces the potential for invasive species. So I know that our fuels lead was on the mountain on Saturday with Chad Reed from the Extension Office. So we want to make sure we're staying ahead of anytime we do this fuels work, we want to try and stay ahead of those invasives. And we've had problems in the past where we haven't got the moisture we've needed, or the seed mix had gone bad or something like that, and we've had problems. But there's a lot of effort that goes into the project prior to just going and starting to cut trees down. So.
Well, along with what you're saying, all the habitat it creates for wildlife and livestock and so on, so good.
Yeah, and I think you'll probably see the governor's tag on Bryan Head within the next 5 to 10 years. It's really coming in great. The aspen's coming in real heavy. We're starting to see some good grasses up there. There's pockets that aren't as good as others, but of course with the removal of those trees, we're seeing a lot more springs and water opening up. So, and we continue to see that out in the West Desert and Hamlin Valley. A juniper tree drinks about 8 gallons of water, so getting rid of some of that has been a good thing for us.
Very good.
So.
Yeah. Excellent.
Any other
Thank
questions?
Could I ask a question?
Please.
So how are you involved in the watershed restoration with your job? You dovetail with that
Yes,
project?
money and people working is probably the best way to answer that. We work real close. In fact, some of our projects that we've identified is part of those watershed restoration projects to remove that vegetation, because of course next to people, structures, our water restoration on those sheds is probably one of the top priorities for us, or for at least me here in Iron County, and many others are on board with that as well.
How's the funding for that going? Is that NEPA?
It depends on the land ownership. In some places the funding has been pretty easy to obtain, others been a little tougher. And a lot of that, a lot of the problem with especially the work on the federal grounds is that NEPA process. It's just a slow process. We've got great relationships with our federal partners, and they understand the need at a local level, so they're jumping on board with us. And again, it's those relationships, leveraging money between state, local, and federal funds to do what we need to do. It breaks my heart because we had a big project that we were working on for the Parowan watershed restoration, but the Bryan Head fire beat us to it. So, and that's always a concern for me, is we'll get these projects going and then fire comes through and we're back to square one. But it's a big deal.
Great program.
It is. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Let's hear about the fair.
Just because we were just barely talking about the fire, I just want to continue just a little bit. We just went over Highway 40 into Roosevelt this last weekend, and we went over after dark, and we could see fire everywhere, and there's lots of people that have been displaced. And we were to church up there, and I'm so continue to be amazed by the helpful attitude of the people in Utah. They have brought so many supplies into the Duchesne High School that they have had to ask them to stop. that there's too many. They said if they want to help, to either send money or to donate to the local care and share, because there's been so many people displaced that the care and share will their supplies will drop considerably. Anyway, I just wanted to pass that on because I thought that, boy, that's a fire up there right now. You can see it. It chokes you going over the road, and you can see it all over. It's right there. I'm still before the fire, so I don't have tons to report because we're just barely starting to spend our money.
You do a pretty good job at that.
Oh, I do. I can spend money. As far as sponsors go, we have, right now we have $12,000 in new sponsors, and there's still a few that have said yes, but they haven't fully committed to to how how much money they're willing to donate, or that they will for sure. So that brings our sponsor monies up to right around $69,000, which is, I think that's pretty good. Our gates this year to help out, I've brought them up to $10 and $6, but I have kept the advance tickets at the old price of $8 and $4. So if families want to go to everything, they can still go online, get their tickets for $8, but I've raised the gate prices up to $10, and that should bring in a little bit more revenue also. Covers. I'm kind of sad to report that we probably won't have our covers for this fair. I've worked my head off trying. We did send out another bid proposal, and no one answered it except the one that had already said that they would help us. So G10 is going to be the builder, but they can't send in to order the covers until I get a building permit, which I didn't know because I would have started that process earlier. And right now, the building permit, I have been out of town for the last week, but they told me that it's not quite the snow load is not quite right. And so they have still not issued the building permit, and we can't order the building until we get that, and the building is 8 to 9 weeks out after it's ordered. So that's telling me
Heroin permit?
it's county permit. It's coming through Chad, Nay, and Lester. Anyway, so I've still not been able to get that permit. So we probably won't have those for this coming one. I tried, but they will be on shortly after the fair. We'll get them. Next thing is I need a commission letter, and I don't know whose turn it is this year, but I need it pretty soon. And that's what I was wondering, if it's your turn.
Sure. Whatever you need.
Okay, I need a letter that goes out into the tabloid, and I need it soon because we're doing the tabloid right now.
What would you like it to say? Or
The theme. You could talk to me later about it.
I will talk to you later and get all the.
Okay, the theme is Passport to Fun, and we try and incorporate the theme into it. But I can give you some samples of what's been done in the past.
I can probably draft it if you need.
Excellent. We will get you a letter quickly within the next day or so.
Okay, perfect. And then one more thing is I am desperately in need of a work crew, and I know that that's a problem still.
So I addressed that with the sheriff's office this last week. They've said that they will get on that just as quick as they can.
I've talked to Mark a couple of times, and he's very willing if he can get the people. Parowan City has been their funds are depleted, they're struggling, and so the fairgrounds right now look pretty bad, and so things need to be caught up with it, and it's not Parowan's willing, they just are struggling.
Could we put
Everyone's
together?
struggling, Joyce. That's still done
I know.
for them and by.
I understand, and they're out there watering with culinary water, but they are struggling, and so as soon as I can,
Could we put together some volunteers to cover what you're hoping? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, a lot of it is weed control, and we need to paint the back of the bleachers, which was on their list. That was to be done last fall, and then it didn't. Go ahead.
I'll get with you. I've got a bunch of
Ideas.
disjointed ideas running through my head, but I'll come and find you today before
Okay.
I leave, and let's see what we can work out. I've got
What-
some ideas.
What other things are you hoping to accomplish? You got weed control, paint the back of the bleachers.
I want to tell Dale, thank you for stopping me from getting blacktop on the parking lot. I think that the road base looks great. Preston has volunteered to every year smooth it out again so that it's nice and smooth. And I looked at the blacktop on Parowan's ball fields, and it looks horrible. So I think the road base looks better than that.
Asphalt needs to be needed.
It needs to be used, and I can
Needed to stay active, and it needs to be a thick enough mat.
see that.
Ring burn.
So I'm thanking you for stopping me on that
You're
big
welcome.
project. It just needs some. The fairgrounds just needs some TLC that I can. And if I'm pretty sure I'm depending that there will be a work crew by August. But if they don't come forward, I can't set it up.
We need to step up and help
I don't
that.
have the man. I don't have any.
We need to step up and help that cause, Joyce. No one works harder at their project than you do.
Thank you.
And it's a big undertaking, and it's a year-round effort, and,
Yeah, I don't think people realize that I work year round.
You don't.
well, they probably don't. We do. We appreciate the fact that you are full-time plus 50%.
Thanks.
Joyce, do you have paint for those bleachers, or was the
No.
city going to buy
The
that?
city was going. The city was.
I'm
They had a
thinking-
bid. They had a bid for it, and they were planning to take care of it, but their funds are gone.
I'm thinking we could get volunteers to do the application of the paint if we can get the paint. I really think.
And we get it 5 gallons at a time, like at Home Depot, but it's a big back, and it
Yeah.
costs a lot of money to cover those bleachers.
Well, I've got a couple of kids that are in the very beginning stages of Eagle projects. Trying to, and we've been looking at some needs throughout the county for them to participate in those things. Sounds like this one might be a great place to start. And
Great Eagle project.
But we have to be they need to be scraped in the worst way, and it needs to have machinery, like telehandlers or whatever, so that they can be safe up there. We don't want them up on.
oh, these are spry kids. They bounce.
We don't want them up on big tall ladders, getting falling off because they're high and there's a lot of area, but they look really bad.
Is it just the back? That needs to be
The
done?
back, yeah, I have kept the front
That's what I
pretty
thought.
much up. I paint those. We paint those every year, trying to keep it up. And just to move on with that, I had Chad go over there and look at them again, and he feels like the posts that hold the back of it up are starting to get some wear. So we have to make a decision there whether we want to keep those bleachers and put some money into shoring them up, or whether we want to tear the nostalgic things down and put in new bleachers soon. But it will be a big cost when they come down. But and then one more thing I was just going to say, I was in Jackson for the 4th of July, and they had their big parade and blah, 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 up there for the 4th of July. Our parade has them beat all to heck. There you go. It was not a very good parade. And they had kids out there on the center line the whole time. So,
Oh.
okay, are there any questions besides what we've discussed?
Nope.
Thank you for your hard effort, Joyce.
Thank you, Dale. Appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you. Stephanie, did you have something?
She's got an agenda item.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm on the agenda, actually.
excellent.
Are you ready for me?
No.
Somebody else was first.
It entertains me to put you on the spot a little bit.
Uh-huh. I'll remember that.
Commissioners.
Dennis isn't here, huh? I guess the
No,
TV's still
Den-
running, so I guess we're okay.
Yeah.
The only thing I would tell the rest of the commission public is we have a solid waste agreement with Bryan Head, because it doesn't make sense for us to go up beyond Bryan Head and pick up the waste at Rainbow Meadow Ranchos and so on. So several years ago we made an agreement with them to do that, and we just gave them a break in their rates for the other garbage they bring, but that kind of got to be a little bit arbitrary with growth. So we've hammered out a new deal where we'll pay them $8 per month per house that they pick up per can. Then that leaves us $2 for administrative, and then they'll just send us a new list every 6 months if there's. So anyway, so we got that done. So that will be orderly.
And we'll stop giving them the discount.
And we'll stop doing the discount we had before. So we got that almost ready to sign it, and we, for some reason, we didn't document the last one, so this one will be fully documented, so there won't be any question. Anyway, so just to pass that on. That's all I have. Thank you.
Then we got the letter from Reg wanting to meet on the 19th at 8 o'clock. Do we have a date, a site for that? You just said 8 o'clock, but
We can just do it at the Justice Center if you want. Everybody but me is, well, Reg is coming from the north, or we can do it here. Mike Worthen, I think, can make it. I definitely wanted Mike to be there. We've done a lot of work.
we do it down to Maria's, then down to Justice
fine.
Center, or down to Visitor Center?
Visitor Center would be good. He sent another email this morning that I haven't read yet. I guess that's the one you're referring to. Yeah, 19th, okay.
Will you call Maria? Do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll call Maria.
Okay. Then we also had a letter from Senator Brasso's office. I just sent to some sample letters that, what was his name, John?
Oh,
Wanted us to, Andrew Harding, asking us to send a letter in supporting the endangered species. Things are trying to work through Brasso's office, and John has that.
I'm not sure I got it, but let's work it out before you go today.
Then we got Weir coming up this next week. I'm not going. Are you, Alan?
You mean not actual convention, at NACO convention?
It's Weir.
It's the national convention.
Yeah, but it's in Nashville.
Yeah, I'm not going, but Mike's going.
I'll stay home and tend the bar also with you. And John, what do you need from us for the Parowan appreciation thing on Thursday?
Mike will be gone, won't you? On
Yeah,
Thursday?
I'll be in the air.
Please come. We're going to do a card, I think. And
What do you want for help?
oh, I'm good. Don't worry about that.
We're running, what's the time again?
11:30, right? That's
Yeah,
what I got on my
11:30 to
calendar.
1. We're spread it out so that the offices can kind of keep staffed. It's what we're doing is an appreciation dinner for Parowan City for having been so accommodating for us while the courthouse was under reconstruction, and we're going to do it at the Fair Building from 11:30 to 1. There'll be Dutch oven. There'll be some good food and some good visiting, and we're gonna kind of leave it at that unless you want to do more. I was gonna do like a card. I thought about a plaque. I thought that's a little bit overkill.
The card's appropriate, isn't it?
Yeah, and maybe I might even see if I can get that passed around this week in the courthouse.
Small gesture too.
Would you like to give a speech, Dale?
What?
Would you like to come and give a speech?
I not only wouldn't like to, I damn sure won't.
Okay, just checking.
No, we'll thank him appropriately without a speech.
All right.
We can have speeches at
We
church.
can have some short speeches, yeah.
All right.
That'll be a good thing. Thanks, John.
Al was the resident commissioner, if he
That's
wants to
true.
speak.
Get up and speechify a little bit.
I'll give a short speech anyway. But the best thing is we've got John's famous Dutch oven lunch, so it's going to be good. So you don't want to miss it.
Well, they really saved their hide by making
Yeah.
those facilities available to us for a full year. And finally, I have not checked in on Lester this last week or so. I don't know how bids are coming on finishing this. I noticed we still don't have our woodpecker holes replugged with EFS. I need to check with him on that. So, do you know any more about it than I do?
I don't. And I've been hit and miss. Is the elevator still down?
Yeah, it still had the tape on it this morning.
Okay. That's a huge problem. We did our whole election without the elevator, and I've just got it all in the old. I've got all of our stuff in the old commission room because I'm not going to haul it down the stairs.
Doesn't it work?
No.
It's not working today.
No. I don't know what the deal is with it.
They came to finalize some of the trim and stuff, and somehow
Something went haywire, and yeah, and it's been 2 weeks now.
Who came? Was it Zwick or was it
Don't know.
just an elevator?
I don't know.
Because there's a trim piece that we've said to Zwick.
the buttons,
So I think that was the buttons that.
and maybe I think it had to do when they were doing the buttons that they.
The button nomenclature on the buttons was one issue, but there's a trim piece that we finally said Zwick. It's very unimportant. Just get the hell on with life and get out of here and turn it loose. So we'll check with Lester before we leave today and see what the problem is. 'Cause I thought we were up and running, John.
We grilled. I was able to kind of hog tie Steve Platt a little bit and ask him about the ETA on the forebay and the Parowan irrigation water. And the original date was July 10th, but he figured 10 days, maybe 2 weeks after that. And so hopefully by the time, well, at least for the courthouse, we'll have water by the time we're ready to.
I thought we saw Steve come in today.
He was here.
I had a meeting with him before,
In fact-
and then he left.
Oh,
Did
he's
you guys
gone.
want to talk about, maybe this might be a good time to mention what's gone on this morning and what'll happen next meeting? The EWP.
Oh, yeah, we received a little over $1 million of the emergency watershed protection money. This, the first increment we received was to do this project in Parowan Canyon because that was the worst situation. Second increment is for Paraguna, or Red Creek Canyon. That's about $1 million, and Mike signed that, and we're going to retroactively approve that signing. But I don't think anybody's against receiving funds, so anyway, didn't get on the agenda, but it'll be retroactively signed in 2 weeks. But so they.
Steve still thinks our in-kind can be made up from our own non-cash contribution.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's been the case so far.
And the 300 West, 600 West crossings here in Parowan, there's money to do a project there. We've already done a large amount of delivering large riprap, and so that will come off of the cost of those projects. But that bid, the meeting for that will actually be today, the pre-bid meeting, but the bids will be required to be in Wednesday, so it's a quick turnaround. But anyway, we're worried about a flood. You know, if we get a rainstorm, we're going to have another flood, so hopefully they can get those projects done before the flood comes.
You know what the schedule is on paving the interchange off-ramp?
I don't. I need to call and find out. We've about got ours done, but where we're chipping, we've had to do what we could when we could, but it looks good. I noticed there's some protests. I haven't had any calls about that. I knew some people would be upset that they couldn't fly off anymore, but it's so dangerous, and nobody will ever develop on the west side of that interchange until this is done. So I noticed there's a couple of protest signs up the other day, but anyway, I think they're a little too late. So we're moving on. But I'll check with UDOT and see when they're planning on.
Well, the grade's up pretty well. That's
yeah, we've almost finished our
Pretty
part
well
of the
along.
project, and Parowan did their part with moving the electrical. So we're coming right along with that, and that will.
But finally, John, if you need help with tables or chairs or anything for the,
Well, I would love, if you want to come, we're going to start at 11:30. If you want to show up at the Fair Building at 11 and help set up the tables and chairs, that'd be great. Cleve's going to get us in there.
are they available there, or do we have to
Mhm.
transport them in?
I think they're there.
Need to set them up?
we've got lots of tables and chairs right
And if
there.
not, we can sure do
That won't
that.
take too long.
No.
I don't think we need a. whole-
No, and I don't think you're gonna have a bull rush. I kinda wanted to spread it out so that we didn't impact the offices.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
The only thing I have, I took a field trip this last week with Paul Monroe and Kelly Crane out to the Pine Valley and Wawa Valley areas to go switch, make sure the weather station and such out there had fresh batteries and to check the data. They kind of indicated where the proposed pipeline would be to get water in Iron County. It was pretty cool. That's the first time that I'd been out there and known what I was looking at. That's a really cool project that Mr. Cousins and the rest of the Water Conservancy District has worked really hard on, and it was very nice to be able to put eyes on it and be able to visualize. And, we put over 200 miles on the dirt roads of the West Desert. It was a lot of fun and very educational as well. That's really all I've got. So, let's just take 5 minutes to make sure that we've got everything in place for the rest of the agenda and come back then.
First things first.
So the money comes through Iron County, and the engineering has to be managed. And he's my source, that's why.
No, he's involved in all that.
Yeah, but politically, kind of, for him it's a football. Typically, people with locals.
But the project is not going to have to be fully completed before Carolyn gets the water or the irrigator gets to the Penstock. It's still going to be, they can get both of those flowing and then still do some things to finish the project. So we got our fingers crossed sometime this month.
What is the
Sorry about that.
likelihood that when they turn it on?
Who is this? We should know who this is if it's an elevator problem.
I didn't think about that.
We've had problems.
I'm over there going, I know my buddy's phone number, I know my buddy's phone number.
But nobody's ever been put out where they.
So it's over a month.
Yeah.
But it's never set for.
I know, this is sad.
So they were here doing their constant.
That's an unknown at this point.
Well, that didn't happen. I was texting when you guys were talking elevators.
Dale, what's the, did you see any progress on the generally purchase on the building?
Not generally. Sometimes when a new person comes in and say, well, I thought he told us last time all the information about this, and somebody said, well, I've had this.
Roll this on, that's my kind of my background. If he wants to give it a hot attention.
Yeah, those are the discussions you have among yourselves and say, hey, you know what do you want?
That's the last you heard, so we need to talk.
And then signage, is that gonna be part of that bid or will that separate? How's that?
That's the reason he has it, because nobody else wants it,
You mean
so,
monument?
you know, those are just back and forth.
Well,
we've got several.
A monument sign. Instead of one on the building, it's a monument.
Oh, okay.
Sitting out there next to the sign. No, we're gonna have a monument.
that it's just totally blocking you guys.
Yeah.
Well, he's whittled
Anyway,
down
I'm
a
gonna throw
bit.
that stupid Wayman back away.
Throw it away.
Forced him to cancel some meetings.
Well, just say,
Unless it's
do we need one monthly? Let's have it every other month.
I don't see an RFP on our website at all for our landscaping. They still have the
Well,
one
it's
for
kinda
the
like the
public
church,
safety.
with the technology nowadays,
You
with
want that
texting,
binder?
email, you can accomplish a lot with a few texts and emails versus a stupid meeting.
Especially traveling, you know, for
Right
like
near you.
stuff.
Probably.
Health
Cedar,
boards and
all that.
a lot of that stuff is.
Did you get in the Gaylord then? You've been there before?
That's good.
Well, thanks.
Okay.
That's a good experience with everybody.
Turns out it was a switch in height. I knew it was a switch in height.
Plus we had some really good meetings, it's just the aging.
That's what you
Oh, yeah.
But every once in a while.
Same company, no, Gaylord. Gaylord.
Good, how are you?
It's not on the agenda, but you had called me about some other stuff, so we might need to talk about that at the end, or I can just.
So I don't know.
Well, we just need to decide if we're gonna be part of it going forward, but I don't, Mike's not here. Maybe.
He's coming soon, had to run some scouts.
Okay. Work with the sheriff's office. Well, it's kind of a weird setup. I wrote the grant, but they can't be
Yes,
under.
but if you want, you have to coordinate, they need something to say yes or no to that. To do that.
One will
Probably follow up with.
Got back from New Mexico.
Sheriff's office. Remember this?
One of the,
And so I got that.
that,
So we're gonna need.
you at Mike,
To scout camp.
Oh, scout camp, that's what it was.
but what
Say we floated there, but we had about a 30-mile-an-hour headwind.
Oh, that's what it was. That's what I was thinking.
There was no floating down the river. It was
There's the,
stream paddling.
did you do, was it Moab? There's that one long channel that you gotta paddle the whole way anyways. So I feel for it. I was like,
Paddled 2 days straight. Or I mean, if you quit paddling, you
Dan or somebody.
start going backwards. Oh, I mean, it was.
and then of course the kids, you go for a while and then they stop. As a leader, you can't ever stop.
You can't ever stop. So the leader stopped.
But then they would help us, contract with the church deciding what to do that.
Yeah.
Get in and push the boat and paddle with it. But you gotta do something.
Right.
Yeah, when you're on top of the water like that,
Yeah.
because you don't get any help from the current hardly at all.
No. In fact, at one point, we threw out the rescue line, and everybody grabbed hold of the line and swam
That's the word I would.
to get rid of wind resistance. If you get looked, so they floated ahead.
Yeah, because then the current will take you.
We got two guys that are pretty.
How are you?
Wait, I don't know if that's a correct term.
Really?
Well, I needed to actually talk to you because, you know how Iron County, we decided a long time that we wanted to go on forensic interview training here. And it was like my way of, pretty much put it on and pull from different agencies to help out with it. Well, now Mike's gone, Troy's gone, he can't do it. And the AG's office actually took it over. But they want people from within our own community
No, they kind of
trainers.
often, and it fell out of my face because of a lot of counties.
So like, so this is what I'm going through right now. So they've got a gal from Washington County that's coming to help, and then Mike is still gonna be able to help. He's also still training. Through, it's funny because, you know, it's like we've been doing this for 15 years. And
they just don't keep up with the
It's very complicated on whether or not it was good.
Oh, Mr. Green.
The AG's office. So what I would love to do is I just did Tom Brooksby, good trainer for this. I do. And so I was gonna send you the information of what the application looks like, what the requirements are. So pretty much what it would be is, it would be part of their scope of work in order to do these training. It's a 3-day training. And of course, then we would just find out like when are kids ability, you know, in order to provide training. But we've got trainers spread throughout the whole entire state. And so the idea is to keep our trainers, like he would probably do mostly just all Southern Utah, you know, between Cedar and St. George and stuff. But I'll send the information to you. See what you think. But talking to Mike and said, and Iron County, so that we can keep
Hold on, little buddy.
I think that's important.
Oh, how's it going?
We would just do it on an as-needed basis. I mean, and there were times that we did, we did have 25 people. Now the AG's kind of in control of it, and now we're 15. And so we already have one who's coming out in July. Yeah, it's filled.
Anything else from me on it?
Southern Utah is still need to be trained. The AG's office is like, well, maybe we'll be able to train them later this fall. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work. Later this fall? No. And I'm like, if it's a new training, and I'm like, well, what's holding it up? Like, I mean, so trainers aren't being paid as part of their scope of work. So what's holding it up is if we decide that between Washington County and Cedar and Iron County, we want to put one in each door. And I can provide, now what? I just am like, okay, you guys did this.
We were coming home from Milford the other night. My sister was driving. I'm like, deer.
You can't just.
She's like, what? I'm like, oh, that was a deer.
So I want to just get a few more people in our area.
She's like, you gotta like yell. And I'm like,
that way when we have them, we can take care of our needs.
But it was because it was weird because it was
exactly. You know what I mean? Well, see, and all the more reason is if you've made that a requirement for your guys.
Ask John to do that.
A requirement, and the AG's office saying, oh, I can't provide it until this time. That's holding up your guys. That's not.
That's due by.
So, yeah, so let's work on that.
like that boulder you almost ran over?
Oh yeah, so 1 week.
Okay, we're going to the eye doctor.
Let's get ready to start back up.
As soon as Dale brings himself back.
Are you over the Hamilton Fire? You want to go to the fire department?
Yeah, I talked to Ryan. Ryan called me last night when I was. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
What's little Jack doing?
Well, he's driving a county vehicle out of the state.
In his personal trailer with ATVs and maybe drunk.
Didn't we have something like this about 5 years ago, and why didn't we?
Yeah, he's going to the liquor store here in town.
Little Jack Horner sat in the corner.
Hot mic.
That's what freaks me out up here.
Yeah,
Yeah, Ryan gave me a heads up last night. He called me.
We can help whatever you need any help.
Well, I figured I'd get with you guys and
How
see
old's
where
he
we're
getting
at.
to be?
Oh, I was gonna tell you, I've got it worked out with Ira stuff.
Oh, oh, good.
We'll wait for the letter.
Oh, good. But anyway, it's off of our.
Perfect. Okay. Okay.
Okay. We've got everything kind of back where it needs to be. We'll be back in session. Item number 1 today is public comments. Just remind those that there's a 3-minute time limit if there are any public comments today. Recognize Paul Cousins at the podium.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you. Just wanted to bring you up to speed on a couple things. We met with the BLM out past our diversion structure at Quichapa that we built last year with the hopes of building a lake for the high flows, and we got word last week that they approved that. Half of that property is Kerry Jones. The other half was BLM. We met with them about getting a right-of-way grant, is what they call it. That includes an environmental assessment, so they went through that procedure, saved us a lot of money. Paul Briggs at the BLM is just awesome to work with. Really like him and his staff. Really enjoy working with them.
What side of 56 will this reservoir be on?
So that would be on the south side, where our diversion structure, where we built the weir. Right. It's just past that. There's kind of a natural basin there, and the thought is to make that a lot bigger. There's already kind of a natural, and the beauty of it's up higher than Quichapa, so it doesn't have the salts and brines, the contamination. So we can store some of the high flow water there, some of the excess with the monsoonal seasons, and then drop the sediment and trickle that down a ditch along the edge of Quichapa into our current recharge project. So that's exciting and we're learning, we're exploring those options and that. The other thing that I wanted to report was I sent you each an email. I don't know if you got that. There's a new paradigm. There, some that are talking about the universal model, they call it, about deep water sources. And we've got, I know that the Washington County Commission is looking at this heavily. Alan Gardner, former commissioner, is pushing this hard down there. They've been out on the Arizona Strip looking at some things. But what it is, and I'll just read the content of this real quick if I can. This is an email I sent to some. On Thursday, July 12th at 5 p.m. in the Cedar City Council chambers. So this Thursday, we're moving our normally scheduled water district meetings the third Thursday, but we're moving it to this Thursday because we've got a chance to meet with some of these gentlemen. So on Thursday, July 12th, the Cedar City Council chambers at 5 o'clock, before our CIC WCD board meeting, Mark Burr and Mike Page, geohydrologists and owners of Primary Water Technologies, will present new methods and technologies demonstrating that there are more sources of water in the earth than previously understood. Mark has just returned from Madagascar, locating water in that area financed through United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF. He will soon head to Nigeria to help locate new water sources financed through Catholic Relief Fund. Mike Page is a longtime geologist and has 30 years experience finding deep water that is independent of existing aquifers. Primary Water Technologies uses sonar and a multitude of other technologies to locate this deep water. Mark and Mike will do some preliminary research in the Cedar Valley prior to the presentation on Thursday, July 12th. So they're going to be working down in Washington County. They're moving out to Pine Valley to do some research. They're meeting with Bob Holt down in Canaryville, and they're going to be here on Thursday all day doing they're going to look into Thunderbird Gardens, some potential sites where they think there might be some deep water sources. And any of you or anybody really is welcome to tag along and look at what they do. They have some sonar technology where they get up, they use a drone that they fly. They may not use the drone in our valley. They might just do it manually. But typically, like on the Arizona Strip, they used a drone, and they fly it and use sonar to detect these sources of deep water. And the deep water is really where you have a earthquake fault or a fissure or a crack, something that allows that deep water to come up closer to the surface of the earth. And they're finding that if they can tap into that deep water, it's nearly unlimited because it's coming from deep within the earth. And they actually do isotope testing where they test the age of that water versus the aquifer, and they can determine that it's a different source of water. And that's important because the state engineer has said that even though you find deep water, it may not be yours because it could be going to somebody else. So you have to prove that that isn't going to affect other people's water. And so that it's kind of exciting new technology. But when you consider the hundreds of $millions that we could potentially spend in Washington County on pipelines, I, for one, have an open mind and think we ought to exercise and explore all options.
So, Paul, will there be Iron County specific information at that meeting? I attended the one in St. George, as you know, from these same people.
This will be different, Alma, because it's this Mark Burr and Mike from the Primary Water. This is going to be really another step. So they did the universal model presentation there, but they'll be talking about this deep water stuff at that meeting. It'd be worth your time to be there. And that's and I don't want to. Sorry, Mike, I don't want to go over my time limit.
Oh, you're good.
But I just real quickly, as I was talking we met with Kent Jones again a couple weeks ago in our groundwater management plan meeting. And you know, Cedar City's basin, we're overdrawing that aquifer by about 7,000 acre feet, rough numbers. Parowan is 15,000. They're going to be knocking on your door next, and probably looking at some things. And then to put it in perspective, you've got the Burl Enterprise Basin, which is 30,000 overdrawn, and that, of course, that's a lot bigger basin. But so this technology is exciting for Parowan, for everybody involved, to maybe find some of these deep water sources that we can, you know, I think that'd be very, very interesting to Parowan.
The question is how economical is pumping it from that far down. But anyway.
Well, and they're finding it. They're finding that, and that's the theory, is it's coming up closer to the surface. They're finding pockets in these fault lines and things where it's 200 or 300 feet down. It's not that deep. The pressure's pushing it up, and that's their theory. Is you're not having to go super deep with it. They're finding where it's pushing up from deep in the earth, and they're harvesting it right closer to the surface. So, anyway, but you know, so as I get more information, I can email it to you and let you know. But Thursday during the day, and then if you want to go down to Pine Valley or something on Wednesday, and with Bob Holt and some of those things, they're going to be discussing there too. So
you're thinking 300 or 400 feet when you're talking about deep well. I'm thinking
1,000. Well, when they're talking deep water, they're talking about water that's coming from deep within the earth and pushing up into these pockets. And these guys are really good at finding those pockets, I guess. That's their theory. So, and so it's when you're looking at the money we're having. I mean, like you done, and Mike, that's, you really don't get it until you go see it, can you?
Right.
I mean, it's really beneficial. Go out and look at it and say, wow, this is what we're talking about.
Right.
Because you don't get it until you go out there. So, but that's, you know, the West Desert thing is you know, a bird in the hand's better than two in the bush, and so we continue to move that direction. But these other things, I think we need to explore them as we go to have an open mind. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, seeing none, let's go on to agenda item number 2. Discussion regarding Children's Justice Center funding, budgeting, and expenses. Presented by Stephanie Furnival, our illustrious director.
You do.
Thank you.
I do too.
Good morning, commissioners. Hope you had a good 4th of July weekend. With us heading into being in July, I thought it would be a really good time for me to come and kind of explain what funding sources that I have in place for this next fiscal year. The Children's Justice Center funding cycle actually runs a little different than the counties. The counties is January to December, and the Children's Justice Center is July to June. So we've got a little bit of, between Dan and I, we have to always kind of take a look at that and make sure that we're both on the same page. For those who aren't familiar with how the Children's Justice Center funding works, it is actually in state statute that we are required to be funded on many different multi-levels. So I actually receive state appropriations every year through our state legislators, that's passed through the Attorney General's office and then is passed down to the county on a reimbursement basis. In that state statute, it wants us to obtain federal funding as well as private, local funding, grant funding from different foundations, and as well as city and county funding as well. On the first page that I gave you, it just kind of explains that. And all of this funding is on a reimbursement basis. So I write the grant, I administer the grant, I also do all the quarterly reports to the grantor. And how that works is every quarter, I submit a quarterly report, and then from there, they reimburse the county for any expenses that the Children's Justice Center had, which is then passed through to the auditor's office. So last year, the Children's Justice Center from state appropriations received $179,499, and that's to cover minimal operating costs as well as some salaries. This year, we have been given $186,355 from state appropriations, so $6,856 increase in our budget. Plus, I also have some rollover from the 2017, 2018, because we were pretty successful in obtaining quite a few different grants and funding sources. And so I've got between 8,000 and 10,000 in rollover. I'm just waiting for for June's ledger to come from the auditor's office. The holidays always make it a little difficult, different people who have vacation time off. And so we've had a little bit of an increase for our center then. VOCA grants, I have 2 different VOCA grants. That's a grant that's the Victim of Crime Act. It's actually federal fines. It's not taxpayer dollars that come from the feds. Our current administration has been very successful in collecting those federal fines that have been out for those who are charged with federal fines. And so to give you an idea, the state of Utah used to only receive about $4 million a year from this funding source. And last year it went to 20,000. This year they're talking 31 to 30. Sorry, 4 million. This last year was 20 million, and this coming year they're looking at 31 to 32 million. And with that funding, as a nonprofit and as a department that provides direct services to victims, we're allowed to apply for that funding. And so that's funding that I applied for.
These are from fines?
They are. They're federal fines. So for an example, you know how Volkswagen had got fined because they had done some wrongdoing in regards to their emissions on their Volkswagen. So the federal government fines them. And then so the current administration is actually working really hard on collecting those fines from those who were fined. And then they're passing it through to the states in order for us to use for victims of any type of crime. So it's been great. So the very first VOCA grant that I applied for was started July 2017, ends June 2019. I received $262,000, or a little over $262,000. The next grant that I had applied for, which I call my VOCA grant 2, my mental health grant, actually started in October of 2017 and will go until June 2019. It's a little over $278,000. So I was able to bring a little over $540,000 into Iron County. Some of it goes into Beaver and some of it goes into Kane County as well in order to help supplement my victim advocates positions within the Children's Justice Centers that are in Beaver and Kane County, as well as provide some mental health treatment as well there. I've also received a United Way grant in the amount that went from July 2017 to 2018, the amount of $6,000. I have reapplied for that grant as well this year. I should be hearing from them shortly, usually around the middle of July. I hear from them on that, and I do expect to continue to get that grant. It's a grant that I've gotten every single year. Cedar City Corporation has been very gracious in regards to putting us in their budget, and they gave us $5,000 last year, and this year it looks like they increased that to $6,000. I also receive a National Children's Alliance grant because I am an accredited Children's Justice Center, which is a very, very lengthy application. They come out, they do an on-site review. They meet with my advisory board, and they meet with my multidisciplinary team members. They meet with other agencies that work with the Children's Justice Center. They look over all of our policies. I mean, they check us from top to bottom before they accredit us. As a Children's Justice Center, we go through that every 5 years. What's nice with that is when you are an accredited member, you get $7,000 every year. It doesn't really seem like a lot, but what's really nice about that is that they have other funding opportunities that I can go after throughout the year as well because I am an accredited center. And so for 2018, we'll be looking at another $7,000 as well. And actually, I know Commissioner Blake was actually out with the funding sources that kind of hold that pot of money. And it was actually a perfect opportunity that Commissioner Blake had contacted me and said, hey, don't we receive funding from these individuals? And had talked to him about, because we originally used to get $10,000 a year. But children's justice centers and children's advocacy centers throughout the entire country has grown, and they have opened more and more. However, that pot of money has not grown. So as they continue to add more and more children's advocacy centers across the country, that pot of money gets lower for each of us who are actually accredited. So we went from 10,000 to 7,000. And so hopefully we'll be able to get that pot of money up a little bit more than what it has been. In regards to county funding, I don't actually receive any hard cash dollars from the county. However, I do receive in-kind. Just like Ryan was talking about how important in-kind is for the county, and putting together in place a really good tracking system. And that's something that we're going to have to really work on, because what I get from the county is, one, I get access to IT department. They come out, they fix all of our different computer issues. There's times I even get some equipment from them as well. If they happen to have, it within their budget, they'll help us out with that. As well as supervision through the county attorney's office, as well as, payroll. They handle all of our payroll for us, all of the Children's Justice Center, our payroll checks, as well as the auditor's office, who receive the bills, pay for the bills, and all of the accounting that goes on. And so I think we really need to, I'm going to work really hard with Dan on trying to put a number with that in-kind, because we haven't been able to really gauge how much that's worth, because the county really does contribute quite a bit to the Children's Justice Center. Anytime that I call or need anything, you guys have always been there to support us. We did receive some one-time funding last year from the county, and it was for fiber optic installation into the center. So I currently pay about $225 a month for our phones in the center, as well as I have to pay for our current internet as well. It's $100 or so every month. What's nice is with the fiber optic coming in, I'll be able to be on the county's server. I'll be on the county's phone system. It'll make the IT's department a lot easier in order for them to be able to jump on, take care of any needs that we may have, because right now we're going through a third party, somebody else. And so we're actually almost right there. They're ready to transition us off of our current phone and internet system onto the county phone and internet system. And I figured that will actually save us probably about $4,500 to $4,800 a year. So that is a huge contribution that is long lasting for the Children's Justice Center. And so I just wanted to once again thank the county for that one-time funding of taking care of that for the fiber optics, and we're almost there, ready to get going. So what I provided to you as commissioners is just a copy of all of my allocation letters, my award letters, regarding the different funding that I've got listed here on the front. Just so you're aware, the VOCA funding that I have left between now and June 2019 is still pretty substantial. This last quarter hasn't been yet billed to them, so keep that in mind, that April, May, June has not been billed yet. But even with VOCA, I've got a little over $448,000 still left over in that federal cycle, and I've actually communicated with the VOCA grantors that I'm going to actually increase the amount of hours of our mental health therapist that we hired from this VOCA Grant 2 second grant. Because it started, it was awarded in October. However, we had to go through posting the jobs for a mental health therapist to apply, and then we had to contract with them. And so we actually were not able to get our mental health therapist started until March of 2018. And so that caused a little bit of excess funding that we weren't counting on. And VOCA has agreed that, yes, it would be fine. They would prefer for us to go ahead and add hours for our mental health therapists, be able to provide services to our victims, than for us to return any type of funding to them. Also, if you look on, since it is on state statute for Children's Justice Centers to be multi-funded, if you actually look on the page that kind of breaks down my budget right here, I've got that listed. And to give you an idea about where my funding comes from, so about 39% of it comes from the state. The rest is through grants that I write and administer, and with about 52% of that coming from federal sources. And I suspect that next year that will even be higher because I've got some additional items I'm going to go after now that we have an idea about how many mental health hours that we're actually using currently. One of the other things that we just got word on just about 2 weeks ago was I wrote a grant to VOCA for the Sheriff's Department. VOCA, which is the Victims of Crime Act, kind of looks at the entire state of Utah and decides where there's gaps in services. And one of the places where they felt that there was gaps in services for victims of crime was in our local law enforcement departments. And so, because I have experience in writing these grants, I thought, I'd be more than happy to help the Sheriff's Department get that in place. And so we had asked from VOCA funding of a little over $146,000, which will go from July 1 of this year until June of next year, to hire 2 victim advocates that will work out of the Sheriff's Department. They'll actually be under the lieutenant. They won't be under me. I just simply wrote the grant, and I will train and work with them and teach them how to do those quarterly reports, and I will absolutely help them out the following year when it comes time to apply for that grant again. And so the way that it works is we've been able to obtain funding for their salaries. There is a little bit of a match. So it'd be 2 victim advocates. One would work out of the sheriff's office. The other one would actually work with an MOU, memorandum of understanding, where that advocate would work with the Cedar City Police Department. And so we picked our 2 biggest law enforcement agencies to start with, and then we'll look at the following year on if we need to add additional ones. And so there's a little bit of a match that's coming in at about $6,000, but for $6,000 with the Sheriff's Department budget and $6,000 with the Cedar City Police Department budget, they'd be getting a full-time victim advocate. And so that victim advocate will be able to work directly with our patrol officers and our investigators right within the departments themselves. All adult rape, sexual assault, domestic violence will still be referred out to Canyon Creek services that we have in place currently, and all child, any types of child abuse, crimes against children will still continue to be referred to the Children's Justice Center. The victim advocate that will be working within the police departments and the Sheriff's Department will actually work with those who are like victims of fraud, robbery, homicide, those other crimes that these victims are not really receiving those services. And so we'll be able to really just help them understand the process of the criminal justice system, work with them and making sure that they're receiving all the resources that they need and the care that they absolutely deserve. It's their right. Let's see what else.
To move on.
Sure.
Since you're on a fiscal and we're on a calendar, when do you need sheriff's contribution?
It would be this year.
When?
Well, the way that it works is, so for each quarter, we go ahead and we bill out for whatever expenses are out, and then we take a portion of whether that's in kind or hard dollars, and so it's billed quarterly, and so we would contribute that quarterly.
So the sheriff going to need your adjustment of $6,000 now?
Yes, unless you wanted to do it quarterly and then let the new budget year kick in.
Right, in January.
So you just need 3,000 to finish out
Mhm.
this year, and then budget for 6,000 in succeeding year.
Correct. And it probably wouldn't even be the full 3,000 because you figure we're just going to be doing the announcement of the job. This individual probably wouldn't even start, I bet, until late August, maybe even September. So it'd be, just about maybe 4 months.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
4 months.
So it won't be that much. There may be, yeah.
So we still need to worry about 3,000 this year.
Correct.
There's a budget adjustment. We'll need to deal with a 6,000 budget request for next year.
Right.
Correct. Well, it would be 3,000 for next year, and then we would write another grant because we'd have to write another grant because it's only a 1-year grant. We'd write another grant, but we would just continue it. I think for $6,000 for a full-time person and that's including benefits and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'd be pretty nice.
Kind of a no-brainer. It's a lot of bang for the buck.
Excited about this. We just can't say enough
it will really take quite a bit of a load off of our investigators and our patrol guys who are currently having to return victims' phone calls and, you know, help sit down and provide them with different resources. And so this individual would really just step in and help them.
So which one of you will take care of that with Dan? You or the sheriff?
Yeah. We'll work together. We're good. We'll definitely put it in place and work together with it. So I think in regards to the budget, do you have any questions in regards to the budget at all? I think I did want to clarify one thing that was discussed a couple of weeks ago. Is there was a question asked whether or not the county subsidizes any of the funding for the Children's Justice Center. And in regards to hard dollars, no. I have a funding source for every expense that comes through the Children's Justice Center. It's just a matter of matching it up with the different funding sources. We do, like I said, get support from the county in regards to in-kind, and we really need to work harder on putting an actual dollar figure with that type of support that comes in, because I think that grant sources are more and more wanting to actually see a dollar sign attached with, you know, as opposed to, well, the auditor's office pays for all of our bills and sends that out and keeps track of our books, but they want to see an actual dollar sign attached to that. So we're going to be working with Dan on getting that in place.
Have you had to curtail any services because of lack of funding at all?
No, we have not actually. Matter of fact, our program has grown substantially in the last couple of years due to having this VOCA funding. When I started as a director 16 years ago, I started out with myself and I had a 20-hour-a-week office coordinator. Since then, I now have a full-time victim advocate at the center in Iron County. I have a part-time victim advocate in Beaver County, a part-time victim advocate in Kane County, as well as a full-time office coordinator backup victim advocate in Iron County. We have added a medical program with a full-time nurse practitioner and an RN their salary is actually provided by Primary Children's Medical Center. And they provide medical exams for our victims in Iron, Beaver, and Kane County, so all 3 counties, as well as with this second VOCA grant, the mental health grant, we're able to provide mental health therapy for our victims. What we found was that we would refer families to counseling. In order for these kiddos, after experiencing trauma, for them to get into therapy is absolutely crucial for them to have long, productive lives. I mean, we see so often that when kids don't receive the care that they need, they don't receive the counseling that they need. You know, we see them in their 20s, you know, they're abusing substance abuse because they just haven't dealt with the things that have happened to them. And so they're self-medicating with alcohol, with drugs, really struggling, you know. And we are finding out that with our current mental health providers in our community and those who are actually trained in trauma care, because they are excellent, it was taking our victims anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks in order to get in to see a therapist. And many times, I mean, kids are so resilient. They are just absolutely so resilient. And the last thing that they want to do is to make their parents think that they're not okay. They want to be okay because they don't want to see, you know, mom crying or being upset. And so within that 8 weeks time, you know, when a parent asks their child, when it's finally time for them to take them to a therapist, you know, they ask them, well, how are you doing? Do you think that you need to go? And kids automatically are like, no, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm fine. And then we find out many years later, they weren't fine. They weren't okay, but they just didn't want to upset their parents. And a lot of times the issue of money, who's going to pay for counseling, was an issue as well. And even though our victims receive compensation through crime victims reparation, how that works is if the family has mental health insurance, the family had to go to whoever that provider was. What we found was many times that provider was not trained in trauma care for children who are victims of abuse. So we're sending them, they were having to go to somebody who really were not an expert in that field. And sometimes it was doing more damage than good. And so what I decided to do was to apply for the Children's Justice Center to contract with mental health providers, and then we could put in stipulations in regards to what your expertise is and whether or not you're trained in trauma care for children and whether you're EMDR certified. I mean, there's a lot of different acronyms in regards to being certified in different trauma techniques to work with children. That way, we would be able to refer these families. They would be able to see a mental health therapist within a matter of a week or so, and be able to really address those issues with those kids immediately, and as well as provide that care to their family as well. And so the thing that I have been absolutely unbelievably amazed was this is the first time that any Children's Justice Center in the entire state had thought of bringing on mental health therapists, and we actually have them housed in the schools. So the therapists are able to actually see these kids at school. So they will get permission signed by the parents. We weren't sure how that was going to go over. We weren't sure if parents were going to be willing to allow our therapists to talk to their kids or not, and we have been absolutely blown away at the cooperation with parents. Roy here in Parowan, phenomenal. The principal of the Parowan Middle School and High School, he has just taken this concept and has ran with it, and has, when we've had issues with, it wasn't a matter of that a parent was refusing to sign a permission slip. It was more of a matter of kids were forgetting to give the permission slip to their parents, and he had no issues at all. Like, you know, I know mom works over at Maverick. I'll run this over to her real quick and see if she's willing to sign. I mean, he has just been absolutely phenomenal in regards to it. And so we were able to hire a total of 3 therapists. Tori Topham is our therapist that's working directly out of the Canyon View Middle School and does work with Canyon View. She'll be working with some Canyon View High folks as well. Natalie Townsend actually provides the care for Parowan schools here in Parowan. And then I've got Charlotte Christie, who's in Kane County, and she works with the Children's Justice Center out in Kane County and their school district out there. When we originally set this up, we weren't really quite sure how many families would be willing to participate. So just to give you an idea, one of our first goals was to reduce waiting time for access to mental health treatment-based services. The goal was to serve 45 victims in our 3rd and 4th quarter as we set up and created a foundation for our therapists within the schools. Together, these therapists have reduced the waiting time for 98 youth. And so we thought, you know, we felt like we shot pretty high in regards to creating a goal. And so we thought that we would serve at least 45 victims. And we actually ended up serving 98 youth, which means these youth had quicker access to mental health and to meet their therapy needs. One of our other goals was trauma-focused, age-appropriate therapy will be provided on site in 5 different schools by trained therapists to child victims of abuse, with 101 sessions of trauma-focused therapy in Iron County. Therapists Natalie Townsend and Tori Topham are seeing youths, and like I said, Canyon View High, Parowan Elementary, Parowan High. Kane County Charlotte Christie is seeing youths in Kane Elementary. Kane County Middle School, it's Kanab Elementary, Kanab Middle School, Kanab High School, and Fredonia High School as well. Our goal 3 was to provide direct individual therapy services to victims of abuse. The goal was to provide 20 individual counseling sessions, and our therapists have actually provided 371 individual therapy sessions. On top of that, our therapists have went above and beyond and have put together 60 different group sessions on various topics in regards to aggression, replacement training, social skills, drug and alcohol groups, divorced parents group, setting clear boundaries, values and communication, positive, aggressive, and self-awareness. As well as we had a goal, a 4th goal, that we would increase the parent caregiver's understanding of the trauma and the effects that it has on their children. The goal was to inform and educate 45 parents or caregivers, and our therapists have actually consulted with 106 parents and caregivers in regards to having a clear understanding of the trauma and how it affects their children. So that way we can better serve these kids as soon as possible, so that we don't have a child who, you know, suffered abuse at the age of 8, who is now working with our law enforcement at the age of 24 because they never ever dealt with the abuse that happened to them when they were 8. And so we are just ecstatic about how our therapists have been able to reach out to so many victims of abuse through our schools. And we look forward to, in the next VOCA grant cycle, I wanted to be able to add a few more, because as of right now, my therapists are maxed out. They are, their schedule's pretty full. We thought that even during the summer time that we would see a decrease in regards to these kids wanting to meet with our therapist. And that has not been the case. Here in Parowan, Principal Roy has opened up the school for Natalie Townsend, our therapist, to be able to continue to see kids here in Parowan, and they are coming. In Cedar City, we're using one of our waiting rooms that's a little bit, the part of the new expansion that we got donated to us. For the medical room, we're using that waiting room area there, which is very nice and comfortable for Tori Topham, our therapist in Cedar, and it is a revolving door. When she's in, one child leaves, another one comes in. And what's been really nice is even kids who have to, who get to go visit their other parent that perhaps lives somewhere else in another state and are not here locally, in order for them to be able to do their counseling sessions, our therapist is actually able to Skype with them. And so she just connects with them over the internet, and they're able to still get in their sessions, even while the child is not here locally. And so we've been extremely, extremely pleased with the outcome of that. In doing so with this mental health, and we've been able to report these numbers to our state VOCA grantors here, and the gentleman's name is Gary Scheller, and he is in absolute awe. This is his dream, is to be able to provide mental health care to children, preferably in schools, because most mental health therapists work from like 8 to 5. Well, most parents work from 8 to 5. A lot do not have evening sessions available or weekend sessions available. So it always made it really difficult for the parents to be able to get their kids to counseling. They would have to leave work, pick up their child from school, take him to counseling, and then so you're looking at easily an hour and a half for that parent to be gone from work. And most parents don't have an hour and a half lunch hour. And so many times we saw that they just forego the counseling for the kids. So now the therapist can actually pull the kids out of gym. They meet with them at lunchtime, out of art classes that won't affect them academically. The other thing that Roy, the principal here in Parowan, has been able to do is he's been able to actually track academically grade point averages in regards to from the time the child started seeing a therapist and before, and GPAs are going up unbelievably with these kids, and so we're super excited about that. I was actually invited by the Chadwick Center. So the Chadwick Center, it's a Western Region Children's Advocacy Center. They handle all of the Western Region Department of Justice awarded the Chadwick Center, which is similar to Primary Children's of Utah, but it's the Chadwick Center and it's in California. And so I've actually been invited by them, where they're going to have me come out in September and meet with the Chadwick Center and the Western Region Children's Advocacy Center, so that I can kind of show them what we've done here in Iron County, because they're extremely interested in getting something in place in California as well with these Victim of Crime Act funding. So Iron County doing great work. Support you. I mean, appreciate all the support that you give us at the Children's Justice Center. I know every time I have an event, you guys are always there. You're always our biggest cheerleaders. Absolutely could not do it without the support of our multidisciplinary team, so many different agencies involved, as well as our county commissioners.
Hey, before you go, will you just take a second and talk about the Friends Board and their financial contribution?
Yes. So since our state statute says that we need to be funded on many different levels, state, federal, private funds, grants, pretty much any funding, any other funding sources, and that's how they just had always wanted it set up that way. They really wanted the community
to see the Children's Justice Center as their Children's Justice Center. So one of the things that we also have is a Friends Board. So it's a Friends Board of the Children's Justice Center. They are their own 501c3 nonprofit group that also does, they're the kind of the fundraising arm for the Children's Justice Center. And so we have one here in Iron County, extremely active. They're the ones that put on our fun run every year in May, as well as our Dancing with the Stars. They've done, golf tournaments before, extremely active. And so our Friends Board is there as kind of like our rainy day fund. And also, if we happen to have any type of an expense that comes up, that maybe that expense, for whatever reason, doesn't fit into any of those other funding sources that I have, then they're able to go ahead and take care of that. And so last year we did the Dancing with the Stars. Thank you, Commissioner Blake, for helping us out with that. You'd never believe it, but he actually won 1 year. I don't know, ballroom dancing.
Only contestant?
No, not the only contestant. But it is a lot of fun, and it has gained momentum like you would not believe. So last...
We usually start in, mid-October.
We're starting now.
We're starting now. It's going to be something to behold.
Now, last year we had almost the entire Heritage Center sold out in regards to tickets for our Dancing with the Stars event. And last year was also one of our biggest money makers ever. I mean, we brought in a little over $18,000, and that's after all expenses were paid. And so for Iron County, that's actually pretty big. And so I know this year I've already been contacted by Commissioner Blake and a few others who participated in Dancing with the Stars, and we actually met a few weeks ago, and their goal is $20,000 this year. And so we're super excited about getting everyone in the community excited about it. It's a great opportunity because we're able to also get out the message to everyone in the community in regards to who we are and what we do and what services are provided. So that way, if there's ever a family that's in need or knows of a family that's in need, they know where to contact us and where to reach out. And so within our Friends Board account, they always try to keep that continuously going and continuing fundraising and awareness so that we also have that kind of as a backup funding source as well in case we ever need to access that.
That's been a great funding source. There's some different training that takes place every year that's very beneficial for law enforcement and DCFS and really everybody that's involved in the multidisciplinary team. And the Friends Board is able to take care of the financing for some of that training. So there's deputies and investigators that attend certain trainings every year, as well as Cedar City PD and Parowan PD and everybody else, that the Friends Board is able to pick up some of that funding. And so it's been a great benefit to law enforcement for the sheriff not to have to dip into his training account to really provide some top-notch training for deputies and investigators. That has been a great blessing. The Friends Board are a group of rock stars that have really worked behind the scenes and have a really good financial benefit, not only to the Children's Justice Center, but other departments in the county as well. They've been awesome.
Yeah, and we've had some that have served on that board for as long as we've been open, for 16 years. And so it's really, you just really see the passion that they have for families and children within our community. So I did put in information in regards to kind of where we're at in our interviews. It kind of goes back for the last year as well as medical exams. You'll see that last year at this time we had done, so when you look at these are actually just actual interviews of children who've actually came into the center and have received an actual forensic interview. This isn't all of our numbers because we also staff cases. There's also children who are maybe 7 months old, 2 years old, who we can't actually do an actual forensic interview on, but we still staff those cases. We still contact those families. We still provide services to them, but they're not actual interviews. You'll see that so far this year we've had 96 actual interviews. Last year we had 123. And the reason why 2017 was up was that we had a group home that had an incident that had taken place, and so we had quite a few gals that we had provided forensic interviews on in regards to that. And so I kind of see that our numbers usually stay where, around the 250 mark of how many actual forensic interviews that we conduct. Last year we had, we served over 450 actual clients that had come through through the center, between families and sibling groups as well. So, any questions at all?
In the interest of time, I'll come talk to you. I want to
talk
with you about the correlation between Southwest Behavioral Health and
we work with them in regards to with the mental health. They also provide counseling within the schools as well.
I'll visit with you.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Item number 3, discussion and potential action of law enforcement services contract for the incorporated town of Cedar Highlands. Sheriff.
Thank you. I've just come before you today to get your thoughts and work with you as far as now that Cedar Highlands is incorporated, working up a contract with them for law enforcement services. And I'm just here to see what your thoughts are on that and move forward from this point.
Is that something you're recommending, or just trying to?
I'm recommending it. If other cities we are having contracts with them, we should have a contract with them also.
So they will pay their share. Correct.
I know in the past that a contract was submitted to Paraguna, and then ultimately they went with Parowan City for their coverage. And then I don't know, there's a contract in place with Canaryville for their coverage also. So I felt since now Cedar Highlands is incorporated that should be explored.
So are they proposing a contract, or you?
No, I'm proposing it, yes.
So it comes from, okay, so that makes sense.
Yes, in the sheriff's office. And I know in the past, I was hoping Mike would be here because we used some formulas that
he's right behind you.
Oh, is he? Well, in the past, we've he worked. I think he was involved in this when we come up with a contract for Paraguna. That they examined that some formulas were used there at that point. That we used the same formulas and the same process to set up a contract with Cedar Highlands.
Yeah, Reed was heavily involved with coming up with the numbers and
yes,
and I've thought about this ever since they became incorporated, but didn't want to push them too hard right at the first. But I appreciate
my thoughts too.
Bringing this up because they do need to pay for their law enforcement, and we need to work the numbers so we have a fair.
Yeah, I want it to be fair and consistent with what we've done in the past.
So and I'm sure you've got all your data on.
Well, sure, whatever data we need, we can pull.
So you had a conversation with Mayor Swan yet?
I have not yet. So
I could support that action as long as the number comes from you instead from them.
So if you're agreeable, then we'll push forward.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't we? I don't know that we all need to be involved, but we ought to have a meeting with at least your liaison and you and Mayor Swan and get this thing started.
Okay. I'll set all that up.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
Number 4. Discussion potential action for assistance to SUU Aviation with the purchase and upgrade to night vision goggle capable to their new aircraft. I assume that's what NVG. NVG capable to their new aircraft. This would be for use by the search and rescue and law enforcement operations. Lieutenant Schlosser.
It's pretty basic. So just to bring you guys up to speed, a couple months ago we made the request to start looking at funding for SU Aviation for a larger aircraft. And in discussions with them and kind of getting the feeling from the commission that $190,000 probably was a little out of our price range. We went back and did some other discussions. And so what they've done is they have they're in the process of retrofitting the Bell 206 that they currently have, which is one of their largest aircraft that they currently have. And with that, they would like to add in the NVG, the night vision goggle capability, into that aircraft. that email there is just the copy that they sent to me listing out the price there, which is for $30,000. Currently, they are using the R-44 aircraft, which is a smaller aircraft. Right now, that aircraft cannot fly at the higher altitudes. We've had a couple of requests at night for night vision already, for search and rescue mainly operations, and they can't accommodate that. These
are individual goggles per person.
Yes, so there's some retrofitting within the aircraft to change the lighting so that those night vision goggles aren't affected by that lighting inside. So that retrofit, that $30,000 covers the cost of the goggles and the lighting that retrofit inside the aircraft itself.
So is it fair to assume that SUU wouldn't be using night goggles for the training? These are for the sole purpose of rescue and rescue.
That is correct. So the larger aircraft, they don't do training in because it's not cost effective. They train the night vision goggle capabilities in that R-44 aircraft, or the other smaller one. Can't remember which one that one is. But they train in that one, but this one would be solely for the sheriff's office operations, not for training.
So
and it would give the capability for us to be able to actually put a deputy inside the aircraft and land at the higher altitudes. Right now, if they are called to those, they're very limited on weight in the small aircraft.
So this capability is virtually worthless to the aviation program of the school.
This upgrade?
They don't need it.
That is correct. They need it. The only thing that would need it would be for us, and for what they've done. And just as a reminder, with them, they've to date they've donated over $500,000 in their aircraft costs and flight time and fuel. They pay for all of that all the time.
Doesn't take much to run a bill, does it?
No, but they've done a great job with us. They are on a somewhat of a time constraint with this decision, just because they're retrofitting that aircraft now, trying to get it ready for the fall. That aircraft that they are retrofitting, just so you know, will have a long line or short haul capabilities. That's not, and that's for training the new guys, but the MVG in that aircraft is not.
Do you have any budget to contribute toward this, or do you need a full amount?
I believe we'd have to have the full amount.
Do you have any estimate on operation and maintenance costs?
That's all covered by SU Aviation.
They do all that? Okay.
They will.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve and direct the auditor to make available $30,000 for the night vision goggles to be added to the search and rescue plane that's donated by SUU.
Second.
I've had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
you. Is
you.
approved. Agenda item number 5, approval of continued state of Utah contract for bailiff and perimeter security for 5th District and Juvenile Courts located at 40 North 100 East in Cedar City.
This is just the annual contract that comes up every year about this time after the new budget year for the state. And I can say this is a significant increase over last year's contract. This year in the legislature, they were able to get us back to where we were funded on perimeter security and bailiff contract. So that does look good that way. So.
Sheriff, what's involved in the perimeter security?
That's just for the deputies to, the bailiffs to maintain perimeter security as far as doing, walking the outside of the building, paying attention to the cameras that are
That's
around
more than the bailiff.
What's that?
That's more money than the bailiff?
Every year it has been. They only pay bailiff hours when you sit in the courtroom, okay. Where court security is, the perimeter security is all the time, every day.
Then I'd move to approve the request for 97, or the contribution to guest contract for $97,737 for bailiff and perimeter security for the sheriff's office.
97,737. Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is approved.
Thank you.
All right, item number 6. Approval agreement amendment. Number 1 approval. Contract number 181559, Division of Facilities, Construction and Management, State of Utah Public Safety Building, update for O&M and additional construction costs for Mr. Erickson.
This is a good report.
Yeah, this is good news. We this comes as a result of, well, kind of good news, right? We overran the budget of the $3.7 million by $170,000 essentially, and we said, how do you want to pay for that, state, since it's your costs really, because we borrowed the $3.7 million from CIB, and this was an additional amount. So they opted, and we gave them several options. They opted to extend the lease for an additional year, and that lease amount, as you can see, for an annual payment in your packet, that lease was $191,000, which would more than cover the overage. So the lease is for an extension of the overage by 1 year to cover that cost. And then we also had 7 months worth of, in the contract we said, let's every year evaluate what the lease amount is going to be for O&M. And we had 7 months now of operations. So rather than waiting for a full year to evaluate that, we said, let's, while we're amending the contract, let's include that revision. So we estimated that we would be short by about $22,000. And so this amendment includes an increase to both the replacement fund. We're taking $1.50 of every square foot lease amount and putting it into a replacement fund for carpet, furnishings, things like that in the building, for repainting and things like that. So we don't bear additional costs in the future. We're building a fund that will fund any of those building improvements. And this also increases the utilities and the operations costs for that building based on the 7 months experience that we have so far. So it increases that amount to cover that $22,000 deficit estimate for this year. And then we'll go a full year and see how that works. But we have the ability to change that anytime we feel like we're not collecting enough to cover the full cost of the building. So this building shouldn't be costing us anything. And they've been willing to make those adjustments in this amendment so that that's the case.
Perfect. We appreciate the efforts on this. It's been so important to make sure this was done properly and we got all of our reimbursement. So I move approval of the agreement amendment number 1, contract number 181559 with the Division of Facilities, Construction and Management, State of Utah Public Safety Building, the update for O&M and additional construction costs, and to cover that, to extend the contract for 1 additional year.
And I'll second and comment on how pleasant his experience was to deal with Wayne Christensen at DFCM. He went beyond the call of duty to keep Byron County whole.
Amen.
Of course, we went beyond the call of duty to build a stupid thing for him, so he left us.
Yeah. Very good.
Okay, we have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is approved. Thank you.
Thanks for making that happen.
They're gonna get their signatures first, and then when they send it down, I'll punch it down again.
Okay. Number 7, resolution 2018-6, adoption of certified tax rates and budgets for the tax year 2018. Mr. Jessen.
This is just a formal thing. We're on a calendar year. It doesn't, if we were to be increasing the tax rate, we do that at our budget time, and we do a December budget hearing and all that stuff, but still we need to comply with formally adopting the rates that have been certified by the county auditor, which is myself. For informational purposes, The combined property tax rate that is for the county's general operations, the library, and the health, those are combined into one rate, and that's .001234. I promise that was not just pulled out of a hat. That was a calculated number. And the county assessing and collecting levy is .000405. That funds the efforts that is the basically Fund 20 for assessing and collecting. And then there is the Iron County Municipal Type Services District Number 2, otherwise known as the our Fund 11, or Municipal Services Fund. Its new rate is .002215. And those are the rates that we'll do first. And then, actually, no, we step aside to do that one. I was getting ahead of myself. Let me just clarify that this is, the rate floats, the mill levy property tax rate floats to provide the amount of revenue that we received last year plus new growth. We did have some negative new growth in one area, and that's because we lost, and that was in the Municipal Services Fund, because essentially Cedar Highlands was carved out, and it was carved out of that area. So it's a odd case that we actually have negative new growth, but we did in that one tax area. But other than that, we are receiving new additional revenues in all of the other areas due to new growth. But this does not represent a tax increase.
Does it increase a mill levy decrease on the general fund 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yes. The tax rates are going down in all cases except for Municipal Type Services Number 2, which is going up a tiny frequency, and that's due to the negative new growth. Typically, your tax rates, if you look at them, they'll almost always go down, even though the entities are receiving more revenue, if you're in a growth state, which we are, unless you do a tax increase, and then you'll also see the rate go up as well. But
Could you make sure Julie has those numbers that we can indicate that this is a reduction in mill levy?
And I believe that's in the packet.
Yeah.
That she would have gotten. So. Also in the packet, when I print the report, it shows the cities on there too: Brian Head Town, Cedar City, Cedar Highlands. Just for informational purposes, again, that's not the point of our meeting, but Cedar Highlands is going through tooth and taxation to go from a rate of 0, because they haven't had an established rate, up to .006899. They'll be now the highest in the county by far. But their justification is they're offsetting against homeowners association fees, and we'll be reducing those, is what I've been told. Enoch City is also going through tooth and taxation as well. Both of their hearings have been set for the middle of August, and we're working through that with them. The county actually has to do some noticing of their hearings, since there's more than one taxing entity in the county that's doing a tax increase. I have to do a combined ad, and they also have to do an ad. State law, I don't know why that makes any sense at all, but we'll be putting those out in the papers. So, and I have those scheduled. So, anyways, a lot of rambling for something that you guys need to do. But
I want to move to approve the mill rate, certified mill rate for general fund at .001234. The assessing and collecting budget to .000405.
That's all you can do for in this till we step out. I was going to tell you not to do the municipal services yet.
Okay, I didn't.
Oh, you were about to. I thought I was just trying to catch it before you did.
You were.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is approved. We'll step out of our role as the Iron County Commission and convene as the Iron County Unincorporated Area Service District Number 2 to handle item number 8. Number 8 is the UASD number 2 resolution 2018-1 to adopt certified tax rates and budgets for tax year 2018. We already have that.
I already jumped into that one, but the
Okay.
tax rate for the municipal service district number 2 is 002215.
Move the approval
UASD
rate for municipal service at .002215.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is approved. We will reconvene as the Iron County Commission.
I've got it. But Dale made the motion. Sure.
Okay, agenda item number 9. Review and possible letter of support of legislation to modernize the Endangered Species Act titled the Endangered Species Act Amendment of 2018.
If there's anything that needs to be amended, it's the Endangered Species Act.
Start over.
Yeah. So.
Don has some copies of some other letters of support. Move to request the clerk to formalize a letter to respond to this, that we're in support of modernizing or scrapping it or doing something to stupid thing. Recognize we're way ahead of where we've been in the past, so motion is to request the clerk to respond to that with an appropriate letter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It is approved. Item number 10. Mr. Clerk, the canvass of the 2018 primary election results.
Yep, give me 2 shakes here. Oh. I thought my computer went to sleep, my monitor went to sleep. Okay. So to give a report on the election, it was a very well contested election. The results were favorable. I was very pleased that the turnout was well, Bryan Head was 70%, but that's not the page I was looking at. We were at 63% overall, 63.85%. There were a lot of contested races. A lot of the individuals are here today. We had a race with someone's name recognition and Mitt Romney, but it was a very important race, I think, for Iron County. I didn't have any anomalies or anything that made me nervous. This was our first election with the new state contract software ES&S. And they were very supportive. They actually had 4 staff here on election day. And we had very few quirks, a few little lessons we've learned for the next elections coming up, but very pleased. Overall, in Iron County, Mitt Romney had 4,928 votes for 59.67%, over Mike Kennedy, who had 3,331. Mark Borowiak had 388 votes with 20.96%. Brad Last had 1,463 votes for 79.04%. Scott Burns had 3,593 votes for 44.53%. Chad Dotson had 4,476 votes for 55.47%. Michael P. Blake had 4,273 votes for 53.67%. Fred C. Rowley had 3,689 votes for 46.33% of the vote. Paul Cousins on Commission Seat B had 3,078 votes for 37 0.80%. Sam Brower had 1,148 votes for 14.10%. Jenny Hendricks had 2,627 votes for 32.26%. Michelle Jorgensen had 1,289 votes for 15.83%, making Paul the winner on that race. And finally, Kenneth Carpenter had 3,506 votes for 43.19% as a winner. Caleb Anderson had 741 votes with 9.13%. Del Schlosser had 2,286 votes for 28.16%. And finally, David Evans had 1,585 votes for 19.52% of the vote. Any questions?
Move to approve the canvas as read in by the clerk.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, John. That was another interesting kind of behind the scenes to watch with new equipment and things like that. It really went off pretty seamlessly, at least from the outside looking in.
You know, it really, with the old equipment, there was always this concern. It was, my server ran on Windows 95, if that gives you any indication of my level of comfort of, I would pray on election day that the equipment would not die and that everything would talk to each other the way it was supposed to. And we're about 14 generations newer computer-wise, so I'm super grateful for that. So.
Oh, one question: you didn't have
Yes,
any
sir.
trouble at the polls, did you? Like we did in the.
No, we didn't have lines. There were a couple of times in Cedar City where there was maybe a 3 or 4 minute wait on election day. One of the things that vote by mail does is it requires that we have our voter rolls very clean. Otherwise, people don't get their ballots, and so. With every election, we clean those up a little bit more, and so the refinement continues, and we hope also to train the voters. And anyway, I felt very happy about it, Paul.
So there seemed like there was, as I was knocking doors, it seemed like there was a lot of people that were registered Republicans that did get ballots. Did you find out?
Yeah, you had mentioned that. For the most part, what we found is those individuals were either A, not registered where they thought they were, or B, registered as independents, or unaffiliated. Yeah, and we did find some that, for whatever quirk of the mail, I mean, I'm not saying they were all that way, but we did find some that through the quirk of the mail system, they didn't. I had one where a husband and wife, exact same mail address, the wife got her ballot and the husband did not, and he called in and I indicated that he could just go to an early vote center, and he did and took care of it. And we don't have an explanation on that other than we kept him in the system at the current address and verified that it was correct. So, Nicole.
A couple people I helped too, they didn't realize that if you don't vote, you become inactive. So they thought they were registered.
Yeah.
They thought they were Republican.
Now,
when we were checking into it, they had missed a couple of times, and so they
right. You don't miss. We're not talking about one election. You've got to miss like 2 presidential cycles, which is technically a bunch of elections. Yeah. Yeah. So, and that does happen. And one thing that does not happen is they're not removed from the voter rolls. They're just termed inactive. So if they were to walk in to a vote center or to even just give us a call, we would reactivate them. Any interaction they have with this system reactivates them. Ken? Oh, okay.
Just one signature page.
Yes, that's it. And we'll have one on the minutes for the next time. So.
Okay, thank you. Personnel items. Adrian.
Talk to a job description.
You want this distributed there? That's what this was covering. Is this okay to distribute?
Dale told me not to put it on. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Just a couple brief personnel-related agenda items. The first one is just simply a new hire request for approval, hired a new patrol deputy, Massimo No. Sorry, I lost my page for a second. Oh, I went early. I handed it to Commissioner Blake, so my apologies. But so I don't have the dates on the paper there, but I think it was
effective date 7/15, July 15th, 2018.
Yep, just a simple new hire process. He's the next one on the patrol deputy roster. Coming in at just the beginning of the pay range. He's excited to get going. He stopped in a couple of times last week at the HR office. Seems to be a very fine gentleman. I think he's going to be a great addition to the Iron County Sheriff's Office. So again, I'm just requesting formal approval of his new hire.
Okay. I move approval of new hire Massimo No as patrol deputy effective 7/15/2018, which is a backfill of a vacant position.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Has he already been to post, by the way?
He is scheduled, I think, the 5th. He hasn't been through post. And I'm sorry, I had that date and I can't remember. I'd hate to say the wrong one, but yeah, hasn't been through yet, but we've got him scheduled to go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. The next agenda item is just simply an update of an existing job description for the court administrator. Commissioner Brinkroff wanted to take time to go over that.
This is coming about as per a request from the AOC, which means Administration of the Court in Salt Lake. We previously had the administrator working under the direction of the commission. We were requested and advised by AOC that they'd like us to move that, so this simply moves the supervision from a commission and puts a court administrator directly under HR. It also means that HR will take care of the public defender contracts instead of the administrator, and it simply says that the person will coordinate and correlate with the presiding judge, with the commission, and with HR, and those are the essential changes. So, move to approve the job description for the court administrator as outlined.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That change is approved. There's that.
Thanks, Adrian.
Non-delegated items. Prairie dogs. I almost hate to say the two words. I don't think there's anything that's come up. Boards or courthouse?
Yeah.
Update on the elephant in the middle of the building here.
And the one outside.
Parts have been ordered. The joys of having that old of an elevator when it goes down. We are stuck on getting parts made instead of parts pulled off of a shelf.
So what's the problem this time?
From what I got from him this morning, I apologize. I was on vacation part of last week, but I talked with ThyssenKrupp this morning. The parts have been ordered. There's a plate in there that's hitting or rubbing that shouldn't be, and in order to fix it, they need to replace that plate. So, as soon as the new plate comes in, he will get down here and he'll get that in, and we'll be operational again.
When do you expect it, Lester?
I did not get a call back before the meeting. She was going to call me back as soon as she knew when it would be here. I was the individual that's coming, I was actually talking to his boss, and she also oversees the department that their supply department. So she was checking with both of them and saying when it's going to be here. But
So is it totally inoperable now?
yeah, he had to lock it out, so we didn't cause more damage.
Okay, I thought we were still able to override.
So
That's gone away.
yeah, what happened? They came in 2 weeks ago, two and a half weeks ago.
Been 3, yeah.
It's been 3 weeks, and they finally finished the interior of the cab. We had a little bit of stainless steel that they needed to
This
do.
was Zwick though, not Thyssen.
It was Thyssen that did the work. Zwick is paying for it. They actually stepped up, and no cost to the county, paid an extra to Thyssen to finish the elevator. So the inside of the cab looked finished. In the process of their guys working on that, it caused this other issue. I don't know if it came because they had to hold everything open for so long or what happened there, but something happened during that process, and we've been waiting for the new part. And so the guy came in last week and worked on it, and then he
Was
wasn't
this
able to
considered
repair
a
it.
minor repair?
Yes, it's a minor repair. So.
So have you received your O&Ms and
Yes.
red lines and all that stuff?
Yeah,
from
I
Zwick?
have that's all in my office, and all of.
So we're done, closed out, paid for, done.
Yeah, the interior of the building is done. So we are.
Where are we on landscape and holes?
Landscaping, I will be sending that out for bid, hopefully first of this week. Again, and then on the repairing the holes, now that we've been holding off just to make sure we actually didn't have a bird show back up, and I haven't had any more reports of birds, and I haven't seen any more signs of the birds. Our little twirly pinwheels on the top of the building seem to be working.
Are they gonna do that with a JLG or scaffold? Are they gonna?
Where is that? I'm assuming they'll come in with just a man lift, a snorkel lift, and do it from that.
That's how they did it in the first place. Was
Well, the first time we actually had
scaffolding?
Scaffold around the entire building, but
whole building,
where they're just repairing patches.
When I saw them, they were always on a scissor lift, but it was on this south end. So
Yeah.
Is it the original contractor, Lester?
I haven't found anyone yet. I don't know. I'm going to try to get the original contractor, but he wasn't so keen on coming down to do a couple of repairs.
We
So
match the EFS through Pacific Supply, can we not?
yeah, and actually we have spare EFS in the basement. So hopefully, I'm hoping we actually have enough of the original EFS to do the patches, and that way we're as close as
So we'll
possible.
expect that done before the landscape.
Yeah. So, and then we are still waiting. I haven't, unless you've received anything from Bill on sign design. I have.
Talked to Chad too, and he was working on it, so we ought to get together sometime this week and push that out the
Yeah,
door.
I talked to him last week when he was bringing the red lines to me, and
Okay.
I should be getting something back on that. But
Thank you, sir.
Who's Bill? Who's designing the signage?
Bill Wilhelm,
McMurrin? From
McMurrin.
Yeah.
He was the principal architect.
And Chad was working on it too, and we ought to get together sometime this week and push that out the door and get something done. Lester, thanks. You've had a busy 2 projects.
I overlooked the approval of the minutes early on.
we didn't have any.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it. Any other items?
Just your declaration.
We'll declare this meeting closed. Thank you for everyone's attendance and participation is the word I'm looking for.
I didn't tell you. Swing by the public safety building. That landscaping is finished.
It is finished. Oh, good. The other day when I looked from Main Street, I could